Welcome back to the Mobalytics 9.21 Update and Q&A video. I'm your challenger coach, Adam Moriarty Isles, here to bring you through all the changes and questions you had. As a disclaimer, I'd like to mention that we only update the low-elo list as of right now, as the high-elo one wouldn't really have a big enough dataset to make an update worthwhile at this point in time. So without any more delays, let's jump right into the update. Starting off in the top lane, our S-tier roster is Teemo, Yorick, Garen, Urgot, Kayle, Kled, and Heimerdinger. Since this was a relatively small patch, we won't have too many changes, but first up we have Dr. Mundo going from B tier to A tier. The reason for this is that mage top laners are quite popular at the moment, and to be honest, mages are popular in all roles, and so Mundo can really take advantage of AP heavy compositions. I mean, he's still a better jungler and all, but he's still a great top laner too, especially if you're tired of being bullied by Ignite Teemo top lane. Mundo can be a great counter to him. Just farm till Cowl, take a sweeper, then run straight at the Teemo, and if a single cleaver lands, just go all in. It's that easy. Our other change for top lane will be adding in Tryndamere Maokai to B tier. After the buffs he received last patch to his ult, root duration, and W buffs, Maokai went up from a 49.88% win rate and 0.7% play rate to a 51.63% win rate, with his play rate doubling to 1.4. Alright, I know he can be considered boring, but he is currently pretty strong and has a lot of good meta matchups into things like Riven, Pantheon, Teemo, or even Aurelia. So not only is he a solid pick at the moment, almost rising to A tier, but with the preseason changes coming in that favor tanks, he is a pretty strong long-term investment to climb next season as well. Like, I can only imagine how impossible it's going to be to kill him with the new triple mountain dragon, including the mountain soul. It's just like, at this point, if you don't have a Vayne on your team, you should probably FF. That thing's not going to die. I mean, tank tops are already making a comeback, even with Conqueror still being in the game, so with adding in tank favored mechanics like the removal of Klepto abuse and the removal of the true damage on Conqueror, this will likely mean that we're gonna have to usher in a new lane kingdom, one terrorized by a walking tree calling itself Maokai. Moving over to the jungle, our S-tier starting roster will be Volibear, Dr. Mundo, Master Yeezy, Nunu and Willump, Echo, Shaco, and new addition Nocturne. With the end of the season fast approaching, we are moving Nocturne from A tier to S tier, as he is a perfect champion to help you reach your end of season goals. And fun fact, he's even solo queue superstar Dopa's go-to jungler at the moment, and for good reason. Certain champions were just designed to take advantage of common enemy mistakes like overstaying or split pushing without having your minimap enabled. I'm not gonna name any names, but if I were, they would all be Vayne players. Not only is Nocturne's clear speed super quick, allowing him to farm up easily to 6, but his dueling power is greatly underestimated, as he can 1v1 almost any jungler level 3, so don't be afraid to take those scuttle fights. His real strength though is of course his ult, being able to get free picks off laners overstaying on low HP, or who decide to try and side lane alone during the mid game. Alright, I'll let you in on some of my favorite Nocturne plays during the mid game. As Nocturne, you're going to want to push out the side lane and steal all of that juicy side lane farm, because you can farm that super fast. And then when the enemy team tries to come and take it, you just kill him and get even more farm. It's genius. The other play I like doing is actually shadowing my top laner when they try and split push, because there is a 100% chance that if a Riven and a Fiora are silent against each other, they're gonna fight and one of them's gonna die, so it might as well be the other guy. I'm not gonna lie, no matter how many times you trail your top laner in a side lane, they're both gonna fight. It's just gonna happen. Sometimes I start to think to myself like, she's 0-4, she surely won't try and 1v1 again, will she? And then right before I even try and finish that thought, yep, it's a free kill, I'm just gonna RN again, let's go. For the mid lane list, our starting S tier roster will be Malzahar, Fizz, Swain, Mordekaiser, Kayle, Heimerdinger, and Malphite. With no changes to S tier, let's talk about some A tier changes. After the nerfs to Garen's early game E, he will be taking a hit and dropping down to B tier. He is still a decent mid laner into melee matchups or assassins, but I was seeing some crazy stuff for him pre-nerfs, where Garen were doing like a Talon cosplay and just killing people at level 2 almost every game, and I'm glad that's over now. Speaking of doing crazy stuff pre-nerfs, Pyke mid is going to get shouted around straight from A tier. This actually could be one of the biggest win rate drops that I've seen from a single patch, going from one of the highest win rate champs in the game with a 55% win rate on patch 9.20 to around 50.5 on 9.21 with a play rate drop of below 1%. Oh man, that's actually a massive change, and not like all those clickbait YouTube videos that always say massive change no matter what. It's an actual 5% drop. It's definitely massive. Pyke just doesn't have the needed survivability in terms of sustain or total HP to survive the high burst potential of mid lane anymore, and he just dies way too frequently. If you were a mid Pyke abuser, main, then I would highly consider picking up a different champion for your end of season climb. Or since you already abused the champion, you can likely just camp your rating. That leaves us with something that's actually good right now, with V4 Victory coming from B to A tier. We were initially cautious with his placement, putting him in B tier after his buff to his Q, as we weren't certain how impactful the bug to his Q was, where it was reducing his shield value. But after checking out the stats on him and testing him out myself, I can confirm that the Glorious Revolution has returned and will be near the bottom of A tier. Thanks to all the changes that has happened to him recently, he comes online much faster than before and has great team fighting due to his 3-item power spike being much stronger in terms of DPS, but unfortunately still lacks agency in the early game from mid lane. His main advantage is that he no longer needs to build rallies within his first 3 items, which means he can take things like Lich Bane versus low range comps, Ludens versus long range comps, and throw in a Leandrius and Deathcap after that, and you're a true team fighting god. As long as you're sticking to those items, you can't go wrong. Just do not, for the love of math, rush Morelos. You can sit on Oblivion Orb, that's fine. Just do not rush Morelos unless you really need the passive. It's not worth it. Now to the bot lane, our S-tier roster will be Jinx, Ashe, Jhin, Caitlyn, Heimerdinger, and Yasuo. Hey Adam, do we have any changes for the bot lane this time around? No, but before I move on to the support list, I would like to highlight a champion that can be played bot lane, and that's Cassio. I know she's not on the list, but Snake Lady Medusa doesn't meet our requirements for play rate, but I've personally been playing it and I think it's pretty strong. For reference, bot lane is my worst role and I have around a 45% win rate on it, but my Cassio bot lane with 20 games is at around a 70% win rate, so I feel pretty confident making this recommendation. One thing you should know about the pick though is that you're pretty weak before your first recall and you really shouldn't try and all in and fight people before you have tier, but after that you're good to go. She's gonna work best with engaged supports that can actually peel for her like Thresh or Nautilus, but she's fine with a Leona or even mage supports that can lock people down for her as well. This is because it allows her to easily layer her W and Q on top of people and just DPS them down with Twin Fang. Personally, I think she may even be stronger in bot lane because it's just a lot easier to play because people are setting you up for easy skill shots, so try it out if you actually like mage bot laners. And now we have the support S-tier roster, which is Soraka, Nautilus, Blitzcrank, Janna, Nami, and Shaco. You'll notice the absence of Swain in S-tier, and that's because we dropped him to A-tier. He's actually still pretty strong and would be S- or A+, but we decided to move him down as he's been on a steady decline over the last couple of patches. Pyke, on the other hand, is the opposite of a steady decline, and just like in mid lane, he took a huge hit this patch. I'm not saying you shouldn't keep banning him or anything like that, but you should ban him for a different reason now, and that's so that your team doesn't pick him. He went from a respectable 50.61% win rate on patch 9.20 to a god-awful 47.51% win rate on 9.21. His survivability just took too much of a hit, so when Pykes try and do dumb stuff to annoy you or attempt to engage, they just die now. Realistically, Pyke's only role in a team was to be a distraction, then chaos a bunch with his ultimate, but now Pykes can't even run around and be annoying without inting. Moving over to the Q&A portion, our first question comes from Free Gaming on YouTube, who asked, what's the bad matchup for Shaco support? With the ever-growing popularity of this overpowered pick, it's a good question. To come up with this answer, you're gonna need to look at why he's strong in the meta. Support Shaco works because he's got the poke and all in to kill mages, and with his boxes, he can easily deny popular engaged champions like Thresh or Nautilus. This is gonna leave us with Enchanter class, which is actually the best into him that you could possibly pick because they just sit back, do nothing, and outscale him during the teamfight phase. Out of the main enchanters, we have Lulu, Janna, Raka, Nami, and Sona, but the champions who do best are the ones with heals to outsustain his poke in lane, so that leaves Nami, Sona, and Soraka. Sona does do the best versus him statistically, but both Soraka and Nami are higher up on our tier list, so my final choice would have to be Banana Girl Soraka, well, mostly just because I like her better. Our next YouTube question comes from Riz1212, who asks, how the hell is Soraka an S-tier for low elo? She has no carry potential. You know what, you're right, she does not have 1v9 potential, but more importantly, she scales well in teamfights and has anti-1v9 potential. Contrary to popular belief, champions that do best at lower levels of play are not champions like Kha'Zix, Talon, or Thresh, who you can see make highlight reels in 1v9 high-level solo queue, but in fact, it's stable, consistent team fighters like Amumu, Malzahar, or Soraka that are the best. This is because games tend to drag on, allowing these champions to do well in the late game without the need to execute complicated mechanics and come out on top more often, as it's just straight up easier to do. Think about it, like you could have a Thresh and they might hit a hook, but at the end of the day, what's going to be more impactful, a Thresh Ashe maybe hitting a hook during a late game teamfight, or a Soraka healing her entire team by hitting a button. She can't even miss it. It's not possible. For Soraka specifically though, she also has an added bonus of being an anti-carry. With her ult and silence, she is able to deny the enemy playmaker or diver a chance to carry the game, often causing them to overextend during a fight thinking they can get a kill, only to get denied harder than I did at my first middle school dance. Still hurts, man. Alright, but in short, she carries because she is a consistent team fighter who denies the enemy a chance to carry the game. Our first Instagram question comes from Swaban, I'm sorry for butchering your name, who asked, how is Tryndamere A-tier though? When looking at our internal data or even other stat sites, Tryndamere's win rate isn't amazing at lower levels of play, nor is he difficult, so he wouldn't get a big bonus, so it makes sense to question his placement. If you look into the stats a bit deeper though, you'll notice that most Tryndameres have not swapped over to the Essence Reaver Stinger, i.e. Triforce style, which is significantly stronger stat-wise than any other build style. You can even add in a Tiamat if you like. So pretty much what we did is we ranked his strength based off of his proper setup instead of including any of his suboptimal builds, which is why his placement seems weird compared to his actual win rate. Our next Instagram question comes from Luki Crucina, who asked, where's Gnar? He is OP? Okay, so pretty much Gnar is more suited to be a competitive pick rather than a solo queue pick, and that is reflected in his win rate being only 48%, which is why we've kept him in the Shadow Realm. As a side note, I do think the term overpowered is thrown around a bit too often lately, as in my opinion, it should be reserved for champions so strong that they no longer lose to their intended counters, kinda like Season 3 Kassadin. That's overpowered. Gnar, not overpowered, alright? He's just a decent champion. Now you might be thinking to yourself, but Adam, I've seen Gnar picked at Worlds and he's doing pretty well. But, you know, that's because he actually thrives in that environment. In terms of drafting, he is used often as a safe early pick or a counter pick to melee champions, but more importantly, teams will actually play around his Mega Gnar form properly. In solo queue though, his potential as a champion is pretty much wasted, as your team will likely not fight around your transformation and likely just engage right after your Mega Gnar form ends, and it happens all the time and you're just such a useless champion at that point in time. Our last question comes from Tomax Delilic09 on Instagram, who says that Kha'Zix A-tier seems a bit low for him. He can go Electrocute in one shot or Conqueror, and he heals so much while doing so much damage. So we actually get this kind of question a lot actually when it comes to assassin junglers, mostly with Ka and Evelynn, but don't get me wrong, I totally agree. Kha'Zix is super versatile and strong, hence we have him S-tier status on the High-ELO list. Here's the thing though, non-team fighting champions who are not tanky have proven time and time again, especially from the jungle, that they just don't perform well on average at lower levels of play. It's already an accomplishment for a champion like Kha'Zix to be A-tier. This is because if those kind of champions fall behind, they are useless, worse than a bug. And if they happen to not close out the games quick enough, they just fall behind compared to champions like Mundo in terms of usefulness in late game teamfights. Most of the time what's going to happen is Ka or Eve players at lower levels of play, they just lack the ability to teamfight properly. Even if they snowball, they're just going to throw a major fight and then they're going to end with a pretty score. This will then cause most people to remember that they had a really nice score and that they did well, but what they didn't notice is they took all of the team's gold because they were chaosing the entire early game, and then they weren't able to translate that into a strong teamfight performance to close the game out. That's why the perception of how good assassin junglers are at lower levels of play is just off most of the time. Thanks for watching our tier list update and Q&A video for patch 9.21, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave us in the comment section below, or go to our Discord in the link provided where you can ping me in our tier list discussion channel. Don't forget to try out Mobalytics today at mobalytics.gg, and I'll see you summoners out on the Rift.